And then what becomes the role of the office, I think it's clear that an office is more than just a place where you get stuff done.
And design is a continuation of that. You just start modifying it, improving it, personalizing it, and that's what design does. It follows my dictum that design is function with cultural content. The function is everything.
Hi, I'd like to welcome Carl Gustav Magnusson and Emanuela Frattini Magnusson, and we're very fortunate to have an opportunity to chat with them today. Elise Shapiro has just written an article in Work Design magazine that focuses on some of the new products they've designed for Allseating. But today we wanted to understand a little bit more about their design philosophy and some of the inspiration behind their design process. So Carl and Emanuela, welcome. We're excited to have you have this conversation with both of you today.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thanks
for asking us. It's going to be fun.
Good to be here.
Good. Now, both of you have had very distinguished careers in design. Carl, your career in industrial design and your initial work with Charles and Ray Eames and Florence Knoll, it includes product design for the contract furniture industry and consulting engagements ranging from the automotive industry to many major corporations. And Emanuela, you're at the helm now of EFM Design, an award-winning multidisciplinary design practice. The firm's output includes architecture, interiors, product design, brand development, and graphics. And your experience includes global head of design at Bloomberg and multiple product designs for furniture, textiles, and consumer products. And it's also exciting to hear you've been involved with the New York City Operation Design, which is a nonprofit that promotes education in public schools. So let's kind of jump in. I think with regard to the furniture and the physical workplace, tell us about your partnership or collaboration with Allseating. Was there a specific product that they needed to design, or did you guys collectively get together to decide what to do?
Well, I had just come off a 3-year project in Los Angeles, and Laura Barsky gave me a call. We had worked together for several years when she was with Technion, and she wanted to know whether I was interested in doing a product for Allseating. I said I would be delighted to. So that's how the conversation began. And now, looking back, after 4 projects, it's been really a pleasure to work with them. There's something very special about the Canadian psyche. I appreciate that partly also because I happen to be Canadian, but there is a real desire to do things well. And I have just enjoyed the relationship so much. She introduced me to Gary Neal, the founder and president of Allseating, and they wanted to have a side chair, conference chair, in the genre of plastic shell from a technical point of view. As you know, there's probably 100 really good shell chairs around on the market. The first one perhaps is the one that Ray and Charles had put together, so that of course influenced me. I wanted to make sure that we were producing one of perhaps the top 10 chairs in the market. So it was with that high ambition that we set off to do something which I think technically forcing the structures into an area that few have endeavored to delve into. But it worked out really well. And they were just terrific because while they gave me a short brief, and we all know briefs must not be more than 2 pages, the brief itself was able to move around, and the chair became the brief. And of course, that's often the way things should be. So it's been a terrific working relationship. And Emanuela, you got involved with them in the areas of textile design.
Yeah, the dynamo of Laura Barsky. She saw my work in textiles that I've done for HBF and Momentum and for Italian mills. And she spearheaded this idea that Allseating should develop their own proprietary line of textiles and asked me to develop a collection for them, which has been a great experience, very enthusiastic, positive team. And I was able to bring my knowledge of everything that I've learned working with a terrific US, New Jersey-based mill, and obviously melding the aesthetic aspects of studying patterns that might be appropriate for the intended use with the challenges of meeting certain technical requirements, cleanability, antimicrobial properties, and obviously also meeting a certain price point, which limits you in what you can do in terms of yarns and construction. So this will also be introduced shortly.
No, that's great. That's very exciting, and it's a beautiful chair. Carl, you've worked with some of the most prolific and important design icons over your career, and we seem to be at a bit of a turning point in the evolution of workplace design. And I'm wondering, how do you think some of your past associates would react to today's issues?
That is really an interesting question that I hadn't pondered, but my immediate reaction is it would not be any different than what we are doing and what they were doing then. It's a new challenge that has always existed during the period of the life of a designer. For example, Area Saarinen, when he put together the chair with Charles Eames for the Museum of Modern Art's organic chair competition. It was intended to be an inexpensive chair. I'm not sure it turned out to be that way, but the thought was right. They put together a completely new solution for a chair. It was wonderful. And I think that when Area Saarinen was asked to do an airport, TWA, he really took on the challenge without any influence from how other airports had been done before then. So I think he and Florence Knoll and Charles and Ray Eames would take up the challenge just like we're doing today. And it would be wonderful to see how the results of their thoughts would end up.
Emanuela, likewise, you've managed design for many corporate entities. And what do you think the biggest challenges that we face are as we emerge from the current pandemic? Are there things that you think would drive work design projects going forward?
Well, we all wish right now we had a crystal ball, right? Because there are so many factors that come into play as we are coming out of this pandemic. And I think it's, as we've learned from post 9/11, it's always tricky to make major predictions because we all thought this was going to be the end of working in high-rise buildings and it was going to be the death of cities. And we see how that all played out, right? So I think that as we move into the next phase, hopefully post-vaccination, learning from this experiment that we've been thrown into with this work from home, which is something we've been dabbling in, companies were thinking about it, so all of a sudden, 100%, we had to turn to that. And it overall has been obviously challenging for many different reasons, but it turned out, I would say, overall better than expected. And from all the surveys that we working with Related and hearing from colleagues and other architectural firms, all the surveys that we've been doing over the past year to see how people were responding, what were the challenges, what would they like to see moving forward, hopefully when all of this is behind us, is that overall the desire is for a mix, right? For a blended situation where you can work from home for, say, 2 or 3 days a week and then go back to the office for the remainder of the time. What changes a little bit is the proportion. Employers tend to have a desire for more time in the office. Employees tend to want more time working from home. But I think overall, this is something that will affect how offices will operate in the future, that there will be more flexibility. How this will affect real estate, I think that's still a big question mark, because with this new awareness for contagion, which I think will remain, and I think that that is not necessarily a bad thing, right? That we are more aware of being very, very close together. We are more aware of surfaces and materials being maintainable, cleanable, sanitizable. So I think that the individual workspace will probably become a little bit larger. It may not necessarily be an assigned workplace, because if we're going to this blended model where at any given time, 50-60% of the office population is actually in the physical office, it's okay to share workplaces. So they would become a little bit larger, but be shared. And then what becomes the role of the office, I think it's clear that an office is more than just a place where you get stuff done, right? Because you get things done in many different locations. But the office is really a place where you engage with your peers, where you mentor, where you learn, where you socialize, where you develop professional and personal relationships, where you onboard somebody new. That's been very, very difficult over the last year. You know, for established teams, working in a digital manner has been okay, but to bring in somebody new or to train somebody has been really challenging. So all of this, I think, is to understand what really needs to happen in person. Where do we need people to come together? And where can we do things very efficiently from home? Therefore, I see the office to become even more of a, let's say, a cultural glue, you know, of an identity center for a company, so that we still all feel part of a larger entity and don't just end up holed up in our Zoom cocoon, right? But what's very important is to make sure that everybody is enabled with the right technologies. And this will require, I think, overall a real leadership, right? Leadership to make it very clear that we all serve a larger purpose, that we're all part of a larger entity, and to find a way to organize activities and find the motivation to bring people together, whether it be for training or teaching or socializing, and combine that with a more distributed way of work.
That's very well said. I think the office is certainly a multi-purpose environment, and the socialization aspect, I think, is just as important as the work aspect. Carl, I wanted to ask you, I know of your interest in classic racing cars, and I'm just curious, is there a crossover between the design of classic racing cars and the beautiful crafted furniture that you've done?
Well, not only is there a crossover, but I think that there's a direct connection. I was into cars at the age of 15, my first hot rod, which I cobbled together. And I believe I learned design actually from screwing around with old cars, hot rods in particular, because they invited innovation. In fact, I think hot rods are maybe one of the true American folk arts that should be celebrated more. No hot rodder takes a standard car and just washes it. They modify it. And design is a continuation of that. You just start modifying it, improving it, personalizing it, and that's what design does. When it comes to racing cars, it's even more so. It's a bit more rarefied, but it follows my dictum that design is function with cultural content. The function is everything. A racing car is expected to go around on a track, beating everyone else, maybe only by 1%, but it's enough. They won or didn't. And all of that has to do with details. Obviously, you have to begin with a very good concept, but in the end, it gets down to the little details of a screw size, the material. Is it stainless steel? Is it aluminum? What are the aerodynamics? And in early racing cars, of course, they didn't even know what ergonomics was. It predated the word ergonomics, I think. But furniture instead brings that to bear. And so it really brings you to the wonderfulness of the history of furniture when you see extraordinary details thought out, upholstery, connections, finishes, colors, textures, etc. It all comes together. The only difference is that racing cars, until of course they break down, go like mad, and furniture moves very slowly.
That's great. I love the analogy, though. Do you have a favorite car?
Oh, I do. The one I have, it's a 1968 Porsche 912. It was referred to as the poor man's Porsche, but like really good design, it lasts forever. Here, after nearly 60 years, it's in perfect condition, and it's been sitting garaged for more a year and a few days in Milan. And when we go over there, it will start like it did as if it was yesterday. It's a real testament to how you can take a great idea that Ferdinand Alexander Porsche did and continue it for 60 years. The fact is that you would usually think, well, planned obsolescence or in product life cycle, in marketing terms, etc., you've got to come up with a new model. No, you don't. You just have to continue with a really good idea. It turns out, for example, that the sales of Porsche 911s to this day are sold out. That's a great testament to how to refine things based on an extraordinary foundation of an idea. So yes, that's my favorite because it's as good as a wonderful Labrador dog. It's always faithful. If it breaks down, you can fix it more or less like you can probably fix it yourself like a Volkswagen, because in a sense, it is a Volkswagen that's been made by hand. So that's my favorite. And Emanuela also has a favorite, the lovely original TT.
Yes, the first generation TT, which is the car that I've had for 20 years now. Yeah.
It's the one that Peter Schreier put together with Jay May and Thomas Friedman. It's the one that Pesch, the then head of Audi, said, do whatever you want to and do it extremely well. You got one shot to get it right. They did it. Marketing was not engaged in the process.
And the power of not second guessing, right? To go with your first idea. Yeah.
And it turned out to be today already declared a classic, which is a little bit early for something that's been out only 20 years, but it truly is.
No, that's great. And the Porsche 911 is probably a great analogy, because you take the sticker price and then they add more money to it when you buy one.
And yet it's a deal.
Manuela, I'm aware you're actively involved with young children and introducing them to design. And I'm wondering if you have any suggestions for aspiring young designers today as they're thinking about the profession.
Well, that's always a tough question, but I personally think that for a career in design, you truly have to be passionate about design, right? Because it's one of those professions that takes over your life, as we all know. It's not 9 to 5. It affects the choices you make, where you travel, what you do on weekends, it sort of permeates every aspect of your life. But on the other hand, I think that this is also very dangerous to say, just follow your passion, because that's this romantic vision of Steve Jobs in a garage, right? And we know that that's 1 in a billion. So what I think is the right advice to give personally is to go into a career because you love what this profession is about, which is really a combination of left and right brain, right? It is very analytical and scientific and problem solving driven, but we also know that that by itself is not enough. You need to add that component that makes the emotional connection with the end user. So that's what this profession is about, and it's a fantastic profession, but it requires a lot of grind, a lot of dedication. It really is about the iterative process of trying, repeating, perfecting. And I would say find something that you're really good at and focus on that. And then share your knowledge, be giving, be collaborative. Design is truly a teamwork profession. And travel as much as you can with open eyes and without prejudice and without judgment. And I think that this desire for travel, which I think we all have, especially after this year, is the ultimate triumph of the analog versus the digital, because no digital full immersion experience of a landscape would ever be equal to actually being there, right? And experiencing a place firsthand. So I think that's an important component of our profession as well, to have that curiosity about seeing how things are done in other parts of the world.
There's so many opportunities that somebody can do in a variety of different disciplines with regard to design. One last question I'd like to ask both of you. I think as we sit here, we talked a little bit earlier about the pandemic. What opportunities do you see, as we emerge from this? And, how should we be thinking about this, as we kind of look forward, to the future?
I look to you for that. You've studied it a lot. And you, when you were heading up design for the related project at Hudson Yards, you had to deal with it in the middle of the whole COVID-19.
Well, of course, we as the design team were immediately in the middle of this question of what do we do now? I mean, how can we make this workplace usable? How can we respond to this emerging crisis, and how can we try to make it safe? And not only we in our bubble, but how does this connect then to the larger reality of the city, right? Because people still have to take an elevator, they still have to commute to get to the office. So you start to see things in a more systemic way, which I really think is the future of the design profession, right? Is to see the connection between systems and to see design not only as a process that gives you a product, but it is also a process that can help you design a strategy, that can help you design a way to vote, to distribute a vaccine, to communicate a political message or anything else. So it is really about this thought process of making things better and of synthesizing a multitude of factors into one actionable element, be it a product, be it an activity, be it an end result of vaccinating a population of 300 million people. So all of this has a very strong design component in terms of design thinking and also in terms of the actual infrastructure required to do all this, because there are several elements that are part of a process, right? So all of this needs to be thought through and designed. And all that it requires is really the intelligence to apply your thinking to this one specific aspect of a chain of events. So I think that there are incredible opportunities for designers moving forward.
I think, I mean, you've said it all. I'd just like to add that I think it does, this situation has caused new products and inventions to rise to the fore. For example, lamps that can kill COVID-19 or any of the other viruses. And it's, by definition, it's UVC 222. This is a lamp that, unlike tanning beds, etc., does not affect your eyes, your skin at all. It's in a completely different spectrum, but it does indeed kill the virus. So that's something that's coming online now, and that industrial designers will, as a profession, will be helping to move that into society to, in a sense, save the day.
Well, material research, of course, be it researching substances that are antimicrobial and cleanable, or of course, the huge problem of recycling plastics. So that the whole notion of material research and how do we apply that to products that does not add to a landfill, but creates this cradle to cradle cycle of reusing and not wasting resources.
I think it's important to continue all the preventive measures, such as wearing masks and keeping distances.
Well, this has been great. Is there anything that I missed that you'd like to add, or anything else that you'd like to say?
The latest product that is just being introduced by Allseating, I believe is worth mention, and it's the one called Prata. The reason why it's really interesting is that, again, there are 100 good conference chairs around, all of them have one failure, and that is that you have to grope underneath the shell to get to the mechanisms, to adjust the mechanisms. With Prata, you don't have to. The hand simply falls to the point where the lever is, and you don't even have to, and you can very discreetly adjust it. I believe it's an elegant solution to a problem that we have now tackled.
Great. No, this has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed talking with both of you. So thank you very much.
Bob, thanks for asking us to be a part of this and to be a part of your wonderful series that we've been enjoying. And we really appreciate being able to get together with people such as yourself. Maybe one of these months we'll be able to get together and in person and have a drink.
I think there is light at the end of the tunnel,
And I've really enjoyed talking with both of you. So thank you very much. And I will look forward to taking you up on that drink soon, I hope. So
we do too. Very good. Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thank you.
Good. No, thanks again. It was nice chatting with you.
Great to meet you. Thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
You bet.